Now we come to question and answer session. We still have another 1 hour, I think, and there will be 2 sessions. Each session is for 3 questions. Feel free to ask in Bahasa Indonesia if you feel more comfortable. And don't forget to mention your name and institution. And please speak by using the microphone provided. One, Niken. Okay, yeah. Let's start with Niken.
Okay, hi Rashesh, my name is Niken. I'm a researcher at the SMERU Research Institute. I find your presentation very interesting, but I have one question. Is there any particular reason why you choose to use the variable from IFRS 2007 rather than IFRS 2000? Because I think the time gap between the election in 1999 to 2007 is quite wide, which is 8 years. Well, I'm not really familiar with the literature in political connection, but then I think if you use the variable from IFRS 2000, and then we can see a stronger connection between the political connection and the labor market outcomes. Thanks.
Is there any more questions? Okay, then you can just answer.
Thank you for that question. So that's a very good question because so ideally what you want to see is what happened right after the elections, right? So you want to figure out what was the immediate effect of the election results on labor market outcomes. The drawback is that the way I define political connections is to look at individuals who were at least 25-year-olds in 1993 and had a government job. So that's the definition of, so adults who had a government job is my definition of political connections. And I want to, so I can't use those individuals in the regression. Right? So the only people I can use in the regression are individuals who were less than 25 years old in 1993. Right? And if I look at 2007, very few of them are employed in the labor market by 2000. Right? A large fraction of those individuals are still in school. But I have enough observations to estimate the effect. Right? So, but I think it's a good point because what happened is so it's possible that some of this effect is driven by experience, for example, right? So people are accumulating experience in the labor market, and also the relationship between government employment and Golkar party might have dispersed by 2007, right? Because it's a long time. So people change their affiliations all the time. So people might. So I think the estimate is still fine as long as this effect is not systematically different in areas where Golkar lost and areas where Golkar won. Right? So as long as this effect of either tenure or the effect of like different reorganization of the institution happen the same way in the two types of districts, then the estimates will still be a valid way of doing it. But you're right. So ideally we would want to look at the immediate effect, but because of the data limitation, I couldn't do that.
Okay. Is there any more questions? Yeah. Sini.
Thank you. My name is Yudi from SMERU Research Institute. First, I want to make a clarification from you that you use from the site presentation slide 17. You use the Golkar district level electoral outcome in 1999. As far as I remember that we used the general elections in 1999 was conducted in 7 June. But in your map, as if I'm not mistaken, you still include the East Timor. The East Timor has already held a referendum on the 13th of August. So why you only exclude on the Sulawesi, but you not mention about the East Timor? Okay, that first. need a clarification on it. Second, I want to ask about the, have you, I agree with your summary, Crystal, but based on my experience and for those area, for example, in East Nusa Tenggara or in the, if I'm not mistaken, on the north is North Maluku, the characteristic of the family that we interview, if they connected with the job like the civil servant, then the community usually classify them as a rich group. So we usually conduct the FGD at the community level, and they divide it into 3 or 4 groups. Yeah, sometimes they can classify it into 5 groups of the welfare. So if we try to make analysis on it, on the educations, yes, they can send their children go to the college, not only to their provincial capital, but they can send into the Java, for example in Jogja or Jakarta. And after the children finish their education, they go back. And you know the time between 1999 to 2004, we have a communal violence in Kalimantan. There are many literatures on the situations on that time. We still how you portray that situations from the political literature. Some said that this is the time for the transition period of the democracy, but we should be notice that that time so many loss of the district enlargement, I think, pemekaran. So, is there any explanation on it? Because Golkar is not only win on that district, but you have that also on the sub-district. Is there any connection on it when the children go home, or the children just stay in for example, just stay in Java and find a good job from there, and so it is very logic that they can stay in have a high payment or a high salary. Thank you.
I'm Alvin from DPAP. Apologize before that if I get things wrong, but I'm just wondering something, that how do you control transfer or capital transfer between intergeneration? Because you do mention about asset household, but that might be distorted by assets accumulated by not only from their parents but from the niece and as well. That that might be distorted by that. And then, as you may know, when you I mean, like the transfer between generation from parents to children, I think it's important because, for example, in such a math model, you have the ability to higher reservation wage, so you can have a better job. Secondly, you have a better capital if you want to start a venture. And yeah, I guess that, how do you control transfer? And secondly, it is interesting how you build around profession, not around entrepreneurs. Because maybe this is anecdotal, but I guess the most kind of profession that benefited from political connectedness is not civil servant, but entrepreneurs, because they have like easier access, you don't have to drive and those kind of things. Yeah, I guess get this. Just thank you.
Okay. There any more question? Okay. You can also speak in bahasa Indonesia. No. Okay. Then. Okay. That's fine.
Okay, thank you for the question. So, first of all, the clarification. I'm not sure. So, the data I got is from a colleague. So, I don't know which provinces, why they included Timor in the data set. But the IFS actually doesn't have any observation in Timor, so they don't. It doesn't appear in the actual regression results. So, I guess when I was making a map, I didn't really pay attention to the provinces and just made a map based on the data set I had. But I'm not sure, I don't know enough about, so this is where my ignorance of the Indonesian context is apparent. So I don't know. So I know about the Timor's freedom or independence, but I don't know exactly when it happens, and I'm not sure. I can't answer why the data set might contain information on votes in East Timor. But I will definitely look into that. The second point you made was about, I think, migration of individuals, so rich kids migrating from their household and finding good jobs in other locations. And that might be correlated with whether or not you had political connections in 1993. And that's definitely true. And so this actually raises, one issue it raises is that of attrition, right? So because IFS may not be able to track individuals who had moved far away from the original provinces, right? Because although they made an effort, they tried to only track people who were close by. But so I do control for attrition bias because IFS made extra effort to track individuals who answered the original survey in 1993. Right? So if they had moved to another province where IFS was fielding questions, then they made an extra effort to track those individuals. So to the extent that they were tracked, they are included in the observations, right? But again, I think the attrition rate was higher for those individuals, the people who moved to provinces that where IFS was not fielded. But to the extent that that kind of movement is not random. To the extent that that kind of movement is not different in districts where Golkar won and districts where Golkar lost. It should not be a problem for the estimation, the actual econometric estimation, right? Because as long as it's random, right? So people made their education, moving decisions independently of whether or not Golkar, what happened to Golkar's election result. Where it might be an issue is if those moves happen after the elections, right? So if some people moved after 1999 and that was affected by whether or not you still had political connections. So you can imagine there was a bigger migration to Java for good paying jobs in districts where Golkar won, whereas the people who in districts where Golkar lost, even connected households were not able to send those kind of migrants. Then that might raise the attrition issue. So that again goes back to the attrition bias, and I do try to account for that by using a selection model as the two-stage model where being interviewed in 1993 is the excluded variable, because that affects whether or not that increases the probability of you being tracked, but it shouldn't have a direct effect on your earnings. So I run a first stage regression with that variable as the selection variable, and then I produce the inverse Mills ratio and control for that in the earnings equation. So the attrition bias should be a small issue. At least I try to control for that, and that's the best I can do with the data that I have. I think did I address the questions? Okay. What?
People transfer between generation.
So again, I think it's the same issue. So as long as the transfer, the relationship between like non-household members transferring to household members was not systematically different in areas where Golkar won and in areas where Golkar lost, that should not really affect the results. To the extent that those capital transfers were used for human capital accumulation. So So if you made your human capital decisions and you got resources from your neighbors or from your relatives who are living elsewhere, as long as that happened to the same extent in both types of districts, districts of Golkar 1 and districts of Golkar lost, and then because most of the people in my sample had made education choices before 99 election, that should not really be reflected. And also the baseline integrations that I ran should have at least picked up some of those effects, right, before 1999. So we should have seen some of these effects right here in the 1997, for example, with more resources. If it was systematically varying, then we should have found significant coefficients for the interaction in variables, in different variables prior to 1997. But since we don't find that, I'm trying to say that those kind of effects were not biasing the results that I actually find, because those would be happening in the similar fashion in both types of districts.
And there's one more question. How about the entrepreneurs formation as you did?
All right. So actually, that's a good question, because I did want to divide the analysis into like self-employed, those who were self-employed versus those who had private jobs. But my sample size is actually very small, so it's really hard to get like to precise estimates if I divide the sample that way. That's one issue. The other issue is that it's hard to account for the selection between the two types of jobs, right? So if you might, so basically people decide which whether to be self-employed or to try to find a private employment based on some unobserved characteristics, and there would be no way to account for the bias that might arise because of this self-selection into different occupations, especially because that self-selection might be driven by election results. Right? So after 99 election, if you still had political connections, then you might decide to be self-employed because now you have connections and you can get licenses to run businesses or something like that more easily. So because of that selection bias issue, I did not, so I just pulled everything, and then so my observation basically is based on the 1993 characteristics rather than what happened after the election. But that's a very, I think a very valid point, that it might be that entrepreneurs are more likely to be getting more benefits out of having political connections than private individuals.
Thank you. Okay, Pak Asep, is there anyone who wants to ask more? Okay, you can.
Thank you, Matian. Thank you, Rashesh, for very interesting presentation, and I think it's very good approach to the problem. I have two comments. One on the estimations, the other one on the policy implications. On the estimation, I think there are three things that we need to concern. One is you already mentioned that the measures of political connection is not perfect, because you only measure within household political connection, which in reality maybe it's spread wider than just that. Having a friend, having a neighbor, or extended families will also benefit from such connection. But I agree that within household, maybe that's the strongest effect that we can observe. But maybe the more important concern is on your identification strategy to use whether Golkar win or Golkar lose in a district. Because if we look at the situation in 1999, actually, even though there are many other parties outside Golkar, the people running these other parties, many of them actually Golkar people also. When Indonesia became a democracy, people create new parties, and many of them actually were Golkar official previously. So if we look at your map, maybe it's more yellow than we see. I don't know whether this will make your estimate actually underestimate your results. The third concern for the estimation is your definition about government employee. because I think more than half of government employees in Indonesia are actually teachers. Maybe if you just focus on the bureaucrats, you also will get more significant or larger effect. Maybe just some kind of extensions to your group. Secondly, on the policy implication, you didn't talk about policy implication, but I think it has a very important policy implication because your findings show that there is a large labor market segmentation in Indonesia, and that's an important distortion because it may discourage people from investing in human capital, and therefore if we want to create a more meritocratic labor market, how should we go about it? How should we break these political connections? It may improve the working of the labor market and also will have also implications on economic growth, I think. Other lessons from other countries where people have been successful in breaking such distortion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Asep. Who you want to give now? Okay.
Okay, thank you also for the comments, and I agree with all the points that you made. Right. So in the actually, so basically, so I don't pick up like connections that appear from friends and other water school network, and right. So this definitely is. So a lot of people who are classified as unconnected actually are connected, but like you mentioned, that will probably underestimate the effect because a lot of people who are in the unconnected category are actually also politically connected, and therefore we should actually be involved in them. So basically, it's an underestimate because of that effect. And again, I think some of the other as long as the definition of connection does not affect is not systematically buried in districts or card 1 and lost. So we should, at least the measurement, there will be a measurement error issue, so we will have imprecise estimates, but there should be no bias because of this mismeasured political connection variable, as long as that it's not systematically different in areas of card 1 and in areas of card lost. In terms of the actual significance of gold cards, and this is something that I've actually tried hard to get a better idea of. So this is something that so in the data you see that the vote shares of gold card, and we know that the old gold card party versus the new parties who won the most vote share. So again, yeah. So it's something. So that the definition that I used to create this this scorecard win variable might not be perfect. Also, other issues that because the global governments are based on proportional vote share rather than like winner take all. So actually, like having a small majority might not actually be all that important from the winning party's perspective either, right? So it's definitely it's hard. But I don't know a good way to kind of address that particular issue. And I followed the literature. The literature basically, the literature that uses vote share basically looks at the majority vote share, and to the extent that the parties where gold card lost, the other parties were also previous members of gold card, and the connected households in areas where gold card lost still had connections. That might again indicate like an underestimate of the connection, because now we're classifying still connected people as unconnected. So that might. So I'm not sure, but I don't know of a better way to kind of handle the issue. In terms of policy implications, So since the literature on this segmentation is actually very sparse, at least in terms of political segmentation along political lines, I haven't seen any. I can't think of like specific policies that might be able to implement in order to kind of break this segmentation issue. One thing is that those who I classify as unconnected in the regression might actually be connected to other party members who are no longer Golkar members. Right? So it's not that they don't have any connections; it's just that the connections they have are systematically related to the Golkar's district outcomes. So so it's very hard to identify a specific. I mean, so I was presenting this paper to my thesis committee. One of the researchers actually works in the US, and one question he was asking me was, what does this matter for other countries? Because this is true everywhere. So even in the US, you have nepotism, you have people getting good jobs based on connections, and it's really hard to kind of think about how you would be able to address this issue. So at this point, I unfortunately don't have any idea about like specific policies that we might be able to implement, but it is an important policy question, and probably people clearer than I can think of how we might be able to make the labor markets more efficient.
Okay. No more question?
I would like to follow up on the policy implication things. In Indonesia now, at least for government job, we see that there is a tendency now of that recruitment is done in a more fair way, by using online system, e-recruitment. I'm just wondering whether such a system would be really immune from the effect of this kind of distortion due to the political reason. I'm just wondering whether there is evidence from other countries which have tried to institute a more objective and transparent and equitable meritocratic recruitment system that we are now trying here.
My knowledge in this aspect is really, I don't really have any knowledge on the particular recruitment practices for government employees that might be implemented in other areas. So as long as so I don't know. So again, my ignorance of the Indonesian system is pretty apparent here. So I don't know what the previous system was. Was it the bureaucrats were directly in charge of hiring citizens within their office, so that they could hire someone they know, for example. And another point I would like to make is that, like other questioner mentioned earlier, so a lot of this effect probably doesn't come from just government employees, at least in the context of Indonesia, but also from self-employment. So a lot of this might be through access to licenses, for example, or permits to run your own business. So to the extent that those licensing system can also be implemented more efficiently, so that the political connection doesn't really have an effect on who gets licenses, then we might be able to solve or resolve some of these inefficiencies that arise by the segmentation. But unfortunately, I don't know much about, but definitely something I'll look it up and something to think about when I can. Probably I can include some of this kind of discussion about policy recommendation in the paper to Mr. Tandu.
Thank you very much. My name is Leah from Social Protection Hub. It's very interesting to see your presentation. Since I work for social protection, mainly for social protection, I'm just wondering whether the result that you've given us about having a higher income earnings for those people that are politically connected, and then whether it's in both wins or not, whether it has a trickle-down effects to, for example, you making the local market to enhance that local market. Is there any effect on that?
I'm not sure I completely understand your question. So you're asking whether the one of the implication of this political connection being important is, sorry, yeah.
I'm sorry, is that my point is that that meant you see from that results that there are higher incomes. How is that affecting like the local market in there? Is there any like trickle down effects, whether it improves other poor people earnings?
Okay, I think so. One of the main implications for poverty inequality is that the segmentation actually creates greater inequality. I think because the poor tend to not have this kind of political connections that are important to get well-paying jobs. So most of the people who do have political connections are people who are already rich or have richer parents, for example. So they have access to more resources. So I would say that the presence of this kind of segmentation actually creates more inefficiencies in the labor market. So that it's not just your own abilities that are affecting how much you earn, but also this kind of these other aspects of your life that does not directly translate into, let's say, higher productivity, right? So it's not just that the best able people are getting the highest paid. It's that the most connected people are getting the most paid. So that creates more inequalities in the market than a more completely meritocratic system, for example. I'm not sure if I answered the question satisfactorily, but.
Okay. If there is no more question, then we come to the end part of this event. Thank you very much for your participation. And to sum up, I would like to take a conclusion of what the speaker has presented today. So there's a positive impact of political connection on earnings, and some part of the difference in earning between the connected and unconnected people is driven by the unobserved human capital investment.